The name of the movie is Civil War. In the future, we see the American president giving a speech to his people, and we discover that America is now in a state of civil war and that the states of Texas and California have seceded from the United States of America. There are forces in these two states called alien forces, and they are the ones who helped these two states secede from America. The alien forces support the rest of the movements that support the secession of the states from America. But the American president confirms that the situation is stable and that he will be able to control this civil war as soon as possible. In New York State, we see a journalist named Lee who was watching the news on television and saw the speech of the American president, but she was not convinced by what the American president was saying. The next day, we see Lee and her friend, journalist Joel, heading to a place where there are demonstrations in New York to take pictures. These demonstrations are because the residents of New York State have been cut off from all water supplies since the beginning of the Civil War. The American police were dealing with the demonstrators with extreme violence, and they also beat a photojournalist girl named Jessie. Lee takes this photojournalist to check on her. Fortunately, she did so, because moments later, a violent explosion occurred in the place. At night, Lee and Joel were in a hotel lounge. She was working on editing the photos she took at the demonstrations in order to publish the photos later. They had a veteran journalist named Sammy with them who asked them what they would do in the coming period. They told him that they wanted to travel to Washington in order to film a meeting with the American president. But he told them not to go there because the American president's protection is killing and beating journalists, and also because the way to reach Washington is dangerous and difficult, and they may be exposed to any danger. He advised them to go to the front lines of the confrontation between the separatists and the US president's forces in order to cover the battles taking place. But she and Joel were insisting that they go to Washington to film a meeting with the American president because it was important to them. So he asked them to accompany them on their trip to Washington. Lee did not want him to go with them because he was old and also because the trip was very dangerous, but she finally agreed. Then we watch her go to her hotel room, but Jessie, whom Lee saved during the demonstrations, comes to her. She thanked her for helping her. The next day, they were preparing to depart on their trip to Washington, but Lee saw that Jessie was also with them. She asked Joel about who brought this girl with them. He told her that she was the one who asked for this and that she wanted to go on this adventure in order to benefit from their experiences, and he could not refuse her request. Indeed, they set off on their journey towards Washington. On the way, we noticed the amount of destruction that occurred in America due to the Civil War. After that, they arrived at a gas station. The gas station was controlled by a group of armed men. Lee and Joel spoke with the leader of this group. She told him that she would give him an additional $300 in order to allow them to fill up with fuel. But he started laughing because in reality now the US dollar is worth nothing. She told him that she would give him 300 Canadian dollars, and this is what the leader of the armed group agreed to. Meanwhile, Jessie went somewhere near the station. Lee noticed that one of the armed men was walking behind Jessie, so she went after him. They arrived at a place where people were hung and tortured. Lee discovered that this man offered to take Jessie to this place so that she could photograph this horrific scene. She asked him why he did this to these people. He told her they were thieves and he should have done it. He asked Jessie about his next step in torturing them. She was shocked because for the first time in her life she saw such a terrifying sight. She didn't move and couldn't take pictures. Lee asked him to stand next to these two people so that she could photograph him. He already did that. After that, they continued on their journey and Jessie was so shocked by Lee's handling of the situation that she started crying. Lee told her that photography is not an easy profession, and since she wants it to be so, she must be strong because she may see more terrifying things. Lee then saw a destroyed helicopter, so Lee asked Jessie to take some pictures. Lee began to give Jessie confidence to start photographing and to get used to taking more dangerous and terrifying pictures. At night, they stopped somewhere to sleep and rest. There was a battle between the separatists and the army. Joel told them that they had to go cover this battle and film some footage. Indeed, they agreed to that. The next day they went to battle, which was between the separatists and the army. One of the separatists was surrounded and wanted to reach a safer place, but he was shot and killed. This was shocking to Jessie because it was the first time she saw such horrific events, but she and Lee took pictures. The separatists then go to the building where the army is located because they ran out of ammunition. With them were Lee and Jessie. When they got there, they found an army member injured, so they killed him. As for the rest of the army members, they were taken and killed later. Lee and Jessie were filming these scenes. Then they continued their way to Washington, where they arrived at a refugee camp and slept in the camp. The next day, They continued their journey and arrived in a strange area because it was a quiet city and all the shops were open and there was no war there. Then they entered a store, and Joel asked one of the store employees about how the city remained so calm and not affected by the civil war that occurred in the country. She told him that they saw the war and the tragedy it led to, so they decided to stay away from the war, live in peace, and not take sides in the war. He warned her that the army might attack them without any reason, but he also told her that he was happy because he saw the city being safe. Then they continued their journey. On the way, they found the body of one of the soldiers. They felt afraid and also feared that there would be a sniper nearby who might shoot at them. They decided to go back and change their travel route, but suddenly a sniper opened fire on the car. Joel was able to drive the car to a safe place. They found that there were two people carrying weapons, and they were trying to kill the sniper, who was one of the soldiers and was hiding in one of the houses. Joel asked them if they were army forces or separatist forces, but they answered him that they were not with anyone, and because they found that this soldier was trying to kill them, they now wanted to kill him. In fact, they were able to monitor the sniper's location and were able to get rid of him. So the team resumed their journey with Lee driving the car. Lee noticed that there was a car driving behind them very quickly. Everyone was afraid, but when the car approached them, they discovered that it was their journalist friends Tony and Bohai, who learned that Joel had gone on a trip to Washington to cover the news. So they decided to go as well to monitor the news there. Tony was making crazy moves and moved from the car his friend was driving to the other car. Jesse decided to get out of the car as well and ride with Bohai. Bohai then drives off to get ahead of them, but after several minutes, Lee and Joel couldn't see the car Bohai was driving. Everyone started getting worried and started looking for them. Indeed, they found the car parked on one of the roads and the car doors were open. They started looking for them, and they actually found them, accompanied by two army soldiers. The soldiers were interrogating them, and they were also burying dozens of bodies in a mass grave. Everyone started to worry about their friends and decided to go talk to the soldiers, but Sammy wanted to stop them because the matter was dangerous. But they decided to go and talk to the soldiers in order to prevent them from killing Jesse and Bohai. But suddenly one of the soldiers kills Bohai and Tony because they are Americans of Chinese descent. Panic spreads among everyone. The soldier wanted to kill the rest as well, but suddenly Sammy came in the car and collided with the soldiers. Then everyone quickly leaves the place, but one of the soldiers was still alive and shooting at them. Because of this, Sammy suffered an injury. Joel takes the wheel of the car and speeds off to reach a camp belonging to the resistance who are fighting the army in order to be treated. But unfortunately, it was too late because Sammy had passed away. Everyone was sad about that. Then Joel and Lee spoke with two journalists. They discovered that many army commanders had surrendered, leaving only a very small number of forces protecting the American president in the White House. Therefore, the separatists will launch their attack today on Washington in order to get rid of the American president and his followers. Joel felt angry because he knew that he would not be able to have a meeting with the American president, which means that the death of their friends and their difficult journey were in vain. Then they go with the separatists to Washington to photograph the battle. Indeed, after that, the battle began, and the battle was very fierce. Lee, Jesse, and Joel were taking pictures of the battle. After that, the separatists were able to storm the White House. Journalists also entered the White House. There were some soldiers protecting the American president. A fierce battle is also taking place inside the White House. Jesse wanted to take a special picture of this battle and was about to be shot, but Lee saved her and was the one who was injured instead. Lee dies to everyone's shock. But despite this, the battle is still continuing until the separatists were able to reach the American president and take control of the place. Joel was able to reach the American president and asked him about the last thing he wanted to say. He asked him not to let them kill him, but then he was killed. Jesse was able to take the first photo of the death of the American president. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed.